Today is Thursday, Parashat Korach. It's also Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. The month of Tammuz, according to the Bnei Sachar, is associated with the tribe of Reuven. Also, he brings in from Sefer Yetzirah the idea that the month of Tammuz is associated with the sight, with the sense of sight, the ability to see, to perceive, and that's an area where a person can be put to test. In other words, you can see certain things, and the interpretation is still left to you to interpret what you're looking at, or to be inclined to see certain things when other people would see the same thing differently. So this month, associated with the sense of sight, has some tests that we may go through associated with the idea of what we see and how we perceive what we see. Last week, when we announced the month of Tammuz, was Parashat Shelach. The Meraglim, the spies, went to spy on the land of Canaan. They saw, all 12 saw the same things, except 10 of the spies interpreted what they saw in a negative way. And 2, Caleb ben Yefuneh and Yeshua, interpreted it in a good way. What they saw, they perceived beyond just the surface and understood, for instance, if every place where they went, they saw funerals, 2 said that's a great thing. Actually, it's a blessing in disguise because the people are involved in their funerals instead of noticing that there are spies that are visiting the country. The 10 said, Eretz ochelet yoshvea, this land devours its inhabitants. They saw beautiful, great fruits. The 10 said, wow, this is the land of giants. We cannot fight against these people. When the other 2 said, with that saw, they said, what beautiful fruits we're going to be able to enjoy. Some very, very beautiful and great fruits in this land. The end of the parasha of last week had in it the mitzvah of tzitzit. Tzitzit uritem oto uschartem. You see the tzitzit and you remember the mitzvot. The parasha of this week, Korach. Korach saw that in the future he's going to have one of his descendants, Shmuel, a Navi who was equal to Moshe and Aharon. So he said, if that's the case, meaning nothing would happen to him if he rebels against Moshe and Aharon. He saw correctly that he was going to have a descendant of Shmuel, but his perception was wrong. Actually, what happened, his children did teshuvah and they were spared. But Korach found his demise by going against Moshe and Aharon. He ended up being swallowed up by the earth. Later in the month of Tammuz, we'll have the parasha of Balak, with Bil'am, who tried with his eyes to put Ain Hara on the Jewish people. And the Mishnah tells us, Ain Tova is a disciple of Avraham Avinu. Ain Hara is the disciple of Bil'am. So what we see and what we look at can be perceived based on our predilection, based on our natural inclination, just like the pasuk in the parasha of Tzitzit says, "Velo taturu achare levavchem v'achare einechem, asher atem zonim acharehem." You don't go after your heart, and you won't go after your heart and after your eyes, but you should be reversed. First you see, and then your heart has a desire or whatever is involved. But it sort of tells us that first, levavchem, what your inclination or predisposition to interpret what you're looking for has an impact on how you perceive and what you see. So this month of Tammuz, wishing everyone a good month of Tammuz, Rosh Chodesh Tov Vorach, and to realize that in sight, what we see, what we perceive, there is still a test, and a person should always be dan et kol adam lechav zchut, to be always inclined to judge favorably what you look at. Don't assume the worst, because what you have to be very careful with is not to be choshed biksherim, sometimes to suspect the ones who are good people, because your perception sometimes could lead you in the direction that should not be there. So to be very careful with the sense of sight in this month of Tammuz, sight and perception and how you look at things and how you interpret them is very important. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.